Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are strapping in for what is truly a massive shift in how organizations are thinking about their relationship with the customer.
It really is.
We're talking about an evolution that moves, well, light years beyond the concepts that defined customer management for the last 30 years or so.
Yeah, the old playbook is it's not fit for purpose anymore.
So, if you're here because you need to quickly get a deep strategic understanding of this new landscape, you are absolutely in the right place.
That's right. The source material we've been analyzing, a really deep white paper on organizational transformation, it makes it abundantly clear that what we've always called customer relationship management, or CRM,
Right. The classic acronym.
it's fundamentally insufficient. I mean, for the demands of the modern, connected, always-on consumer, it just doesn't cut it.
We've seen this exponential growth in technology, of course.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But, and this is the key point, it's more about the rapid evolution of these disruptive business models. That's what's really changing the game.
So it's more than just a software upgrade, isn't it?
Much more.
The source describes this as a massive transformation. It touches on economics, business philosophy, and, yeah, the technology itself.
Exactly.
So our mission today is to unpack this evolution into what people are now calling true customer experience, or CX. We're focusing on the blueprint, really, required for this journey.
And that blueprint is business architecture. Its role is vital in bridging that massive gap between high-level business strategy on one side.
And then the fragmented legacy technology silos on the other.
Precisely. We're moving from just managing sales leads to managing lifetime value across an entire enterprise.
And that requires a governing philosophy.
Does.
Okay, let's unpack that. We're calling this governing philosophy business architecture. But for years, I mean, for decades, architecture was something the IT department did, right? In a back room somewhere.
Yeah, it was their domain.
So what does business architecture truly mean in the context of CX, and why is the business unit, not just IT, now required to own it?
It's a really foundational concept that it relies on understanding where power resides now. Historically, when technology was bespoke, complex, and incredibly expensive.
Think mainframes.
Exactly. Mainframes and those early clunky enterprise software packages. IT departments acted as, well, gatekeepers and designers. They were the only ones who knew how to build the structure.
Right. If you wanted a new capability, you filed a ticket, waited 6 months, and IT built the room for you.
That's it, exactly. But the transformation is massive because, as the source material really highlights, technology has become easier to use. It's highly modular, and it's significantly easier to modify based on what the business needs.
That accessibility is the key.
It's the core driver blurring those lines between the business side and the IT side. If the technology becomes, say, a set of configurable digital components like building blocks.
Then the business has to be the one who decides how those blocks fit together to serve the customer.
Yes. The business is no longer just waiting for IT to deliver a finished product.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the business is now dictating the process architecture itself.
That is the essence of business architecture in this context.
Yeah.
If the technology is that adaptable, then the lines of business must take ownership of the end-to-end process that's enabled by that technology.
This isn't just about selecting a piece of software anymore.
Not at all. It's about designing the workflow, the data flows, the governance structures that span the entire organization. They are dictating the functional architecture from a strategic perspective.
That makes perfect sense. The analogy I like to use here is it's like moving from buying a pre-built house where IT dictates the rooms to buying high-end modular furniture.
Yeah.
The furniture, the software components, they're excellent. But if the homeowner, the line of business, doesn't dictate the layout,
You end up with a mess.
a beautiful, expensive mess that doesn't actually support how you live.
A fantastic analogy. And that architectural task, because it's so centered on the customer, is just incredibly broad. Customer experience requires synergy across every single group that interacts with the customer.
We're talking sales, service, e-commerce.
Marketing, distributors, channel partners. It's already a huge organizational footprint.
But the truly transformative part is how deep it goes into the operational core. I mean, to deliver a truly memorable CX, these customer-facing departments can't just be glossy front ends.
No, that's just window dressing.
They have to be intricately woven into the core operational lines of business, the LOBs, like HR, supply chain, logistics, finance.
And most importantly, the foundational enterprise resource planning, the ERP systems.
Yes. because the customer doesn't care if the product they ordered is out of stock because the sales forecast didn't talk to the supply chain manager.
All they know is the brand failed them.
Exactly. They just cared that the promise was broken.
And that ability to execute a seamless cross-functional process is, at the end of the day, the ultimate competitive differentiator.
And this is where the value of a dedicated business architect really shines.
It is. We often talk about the campaign-to-cash example because it is the classic cross-departmental killer. It's a single process, yet it's often governed by, 4 or 5 different departments.
All with conflicting goals and their own software.
Exactly.
Okay, let's map out that process friction. In the traditional siloed world, it's just a series of sequential handoffs, right?
Right. A marketing campaign generates a lead.
Sales takes the lead, turns it into an opportunity. Pricing generates a blug. Quote, customer accepts, it becomes an order.
And then that order kicks off a whole other chain of events. It triggers logistics and supply chain action, followed by billing, and finally invoicing, which is handled by finance.
That's 7 distinct handoffs.
At least. Likely across 4 or 5 different applications, all with different data definitions of who the customer even is.
A mess. Now let's overlay the digital reality on top of that.
Okay. A digital marketing team uses automated tools to trigger web personalization based on your browsing history,
That leads to an e-commerce sale.
which then auto-triggers order fulfillment and, finally, invoicing. Seems smooth, Mark.
It seems smoother, but even in that digital example, if the e-commerce system is disconnected from the supply chain system,
The system that tells you about inventory availability.
yes, the customer can complete the purchase, feel great about it, and then get a disappointing email 3 hours later about a 3-week back order.
That's a classic CX failure. And that's precisely the goal of the business architect, to look at that entire chain, whether it's the traditional one or the digital one, and eliminate those cracks.
They ensure the seamless, consistent execution of these complex end-to-end processes.
They're the conductor. They make sure the business process and the underlying data are perfectly synchronized, not just functioning independently in their own little worlds.
So without that role, you might have great sales software and great logistics software.
But the customer still has a terrible experience. The architect defines the flow before the technologists even start building.
That makes the distinction between CRM, which is just a siloed tool, and CX, an enterprise-wide strategy, crystal clear.
That does.
But to really appreciate the scale of this fragmentation problem we're all dealing with, we have to rewind a bit. Let's look at how CRM even came to be, because it's the necessary foundation that CX is now being built on top of.
Absolutely. The journey begins long before the dedicated CRM applications we all know today. Back in the 1980s and early 90s, the very basic concept of customer management was already embedded in these massive enterprise resource planning systems.
The ERPs.
Right. And these systems focused heavily on core operations like manufacturing, materials management, and sales and distribution.
So the ERP was already tracking who the customer was, their location, what they'd bought, basically handling the transactional basics.
Yes, it was, even before the concept of managing the relationship really emerged as a separate idea.
And this is a crucial point that I think a lot of people overlook when they talk about CX today.
It's so important. ERP systems are still the cornerstone. They manage the fundamentals: manufacturing execution, global logistics, complex product planning, all the financials, procurement.
The source material uses a really powerful, enduring analogy for this.
It does. No matter how advanced the modern automobile is, with all its self-driving features and digital dashboards, it still needs a combustion engine, or, at least a battery and a core operating system.
ERP is that engine. It's the source of energy for a successful customer experience.
Exactly. The bond between that core transactional ERP system and the customer-facing systems is powerful, and it is enduring. You simply cannot decouple the customer experience from the physical reality of inventory, finance, and production.
But then, in the 1990s, the global economy really changed the whole equation.
It did.
We saw globalization accelerating, which meant more complex supply chains, but also rising consumer spending and, this is critical, an increase in the availability of high-quality goods at lower costs.
This macroeconomic wave, it just drove unprecedented growth. Organizations had the confidence, they had the capital, to invest heavily in specialized tools.
And it dramatically drove the growth and the power of the customer-facing role.
Especially the field sales organizations. Sales became king, and they needed specialized tools that the Often cumbersome, centralized ERP systems just couldn't provide them quickly enough.
And this is where the big technological disruption of the cloud software as a service, or SaaS, enters the stage.
The timing was perfect. The rise of SaaS was perfectly timed to meet this new demand. It offered an end run around the internal IT bureaucracy.
No more waiting 6 months for a server.
Exactly. Field sales teams could adopt subscription-based software so easily, accessible over the internet, without waiting for the internal IT department to provision servers or install custom code.
And this fundamentally changed how organizations started consuming applications.
It really did. It created a preference for these specialized, agile, and often, well, disconnected, best-of-breed solutions.
So while sales teams were getting this new autonomy, the customer was also going through a profound transformation. We entered the customer is king era, which was then dramatically amplified by new technology.
Precisely. All of a sudden, customers had unprecedented choice, instant access to competitive information, and powerful platforms, social media, smartphones, to voice their opinions, both the good and the bad.
And they started demanding tailored experiences.
Which forced the expansion of customer management beyond just simple sales tracking. Marketing had to change, and change rapidly. They had to focus on granular segmentation, targeted offers.
And engaging customers not just through traditional ads, but through these personalized digital interactions.
So we saw CRM expand from just customer acquisition into two new, really vital areas.
Customer care and customer retention.
Exactly. The studies were decisive. They proved it was far easier and more profitable to upsell and cross-sell to an existing customer than to constantly be out there acquiring new ones.
And that led to the rapid evolution of specialized service software.
It did.
Can you detail those different service flavors for us?
Of course. So first, you had the evolution of basic call center applications, which were really focused on speed and efficiency for voice calls.
Just answering the phone quickly.
Right. Then that evolved into sophisticated service ticket and case management systems designed to trap issues across multiple channels, email, phone, a web portal, and manage the resolution against service-level agreements, or SLAs.
And then for businesses dealing with physical products.
You saw the rise of specialized field service solutions. These were optimized for technicians who were traveling to customer locations, handling scheduling, parts inventory, mobile reporting, that sort of thing.
In parallel to that whole evolution, the digital front door e-commerce was having its own revolution.
Absolutely. E-commerce transitioned from being these simple brand promotion websites like, digital billboards.
Yeah, a brochure online.
To becoming full self-service environments. Customers began performing incredibly complex interactions online, from configuring custom products to managing their account details, handling returns, tracking complex order statuses.
All through a digital portal without ever speaking to a human.
And this democratization of self-service was a huge technological undertaking.
And as this whole software ecosystem grew, it started specializing even further based on the needs of the vertical industry.
Right. We saw the need for deep industry specificity. A generic sales process, it just doesn't work for every industry. The nuances are profound.
For sure.
Think about the unique requirements of a point-of-sale system in a retail environment, or the highly regulated processes you need for wealth management in financial services.
Or the complex, multi-layered approvals needed in large-scale government contracting.
Right. You needed dedicated CRM solutions to handle those industry-specific workflows and all the regulatory compliance issues that came with them.
But despite all these specialized flavors and functional silos, there were some common technological threads that improved CRM adoption across the board.
Yes. For managers, the integration of business analytics became non-negotiable. They needed dashboards to track performance against KPIs.
For the users.
For users, built-in workflows and automation were critical to ease their tasks, particularly in these complex sales processes.
And maybe most critical of all was the focus on user experience.
Absolutely, making these complex tools intuitive, coupled with the massive growth of mobile usage.
Right. Sales teams were using apps to create leads on their smartphones.
While customers were increasingly relying on dedicated mobile shopping and service apps.
And finally, leading up to the current CX transformation we're talking about, we saw the early integration of advanced predictive technology.
Machine learning and artificial intelligence began integrating directly into the CRM suite. This was the big push towards predictive analytics.
We saw personalization engines on websites recommending products based on your browsing history.
Complex algorithms suggesting the next best offer for an upsell or a cross-sell.
And the emergence of sophisticated chatbots for that initial service triage.
Right. Even leveraging Internet of Things or IoT devices to track consumption and preemptively manage service needs became commonplace. This was CRM reaching its technological zenith, highly functional in its individual parts.
But, as we've established, suffering from a fatal structural flaw.
The fragmentation.
That fatal flaw being the fragmentation problem.
Yeah.
If we look at the current reality of most, Fortune 500 companies, their systems reflect that 3-decade history of just accretion. It's a patchwork quilt.
It is. They have standardized software, a mix of older on-premise solutions, newer hybrid deployments, pure cloud SaaS applications. They have custom homegrown applications that were developed over years by in-house IT.
And let's not pretend the manual processes are gone.
Oh, no. Ad hoc spreadsheets and departmental databases are still filling the gaps everywhere. The source material is very honest about this. There's no right mix. Every company's history is unique.
This complexity is where the strategic business argument really comes into play. You mentioned the concept of comparative advantage. We need to talk about that philosophical shift for the IT organization.
Right. If an organization's core competency is designing jet engines or providing financial services or manufacturing clothing.
Their competitive advantage is not building generic business software.
Exactly. They should focus on what they do best and let specialized software companies handle the core software creation and maintenance.
So instead of being software builders, the internal IT department needs to shift its role entirely. They need to become a value advisor.
Yes, it becomes about procurement, integration, and strategic governance, not custom coding every single function from scratch.
They become the curators of the enterprise.
Not the developers of the application layer.
Mm.
And this leads us directly to the core distinction between these highly functional CRM systems and a true CX strategy.
Why isn't having best-in-class CRM for sales and another for marketing and a third for service? Why isn't that sufficient?
Because CRM systems, by the very definition of how they evolved, were built in silos. They optimize the individual function, the sales process, the marketing automation process, the service ticket process, but they rarely spoke to each other naturally or natively.
Right.
Customer experience, or CX, is fundamentally different. It provides a unified, end-to-end, seamless business process across all the customer journeys and organizational engagements.
And it always keeps the customer, the protagonist, as the central focus.
Always.
Let's make this concrete. We need to follow the complexity of a single customer interaction. Let's use that detailed business to consumer, the B2C retail scenario that was presented in the sources.
Okay, visualize this. A consumer buys 10 items online. The order confirmation is instantaneous. They opt for in-store pickup to save some shipping time.
Simple enough so far.
A week later, they decide they don't like 3 of the items, so they return them at a different store location, and they get an instant credit back to their original payment method.
Simple for the customer.
Okay.
But internally, that single interaction just touched 5 or 6 disparate systems.
At least. And let's trace it all the way back to the start. That customer didn't just stumble on the website. The trigger could have been a social media ad based on their demographic profile.
Or an email coupon from a prior loyalty purchase.
Maybe they called the call center last week asking about store hours. Or perhaps they physically visited a store and tried samples the week before.
That's millions of daily interactions across multiple channels, all forming this customer universe.
And the moment of truth happens when the customer needs that real-time consolidation. For instance, when the customer walks into that second store to return the items.
That store's point-of-sale system, the POS system, must know instantly that the e-commerce order was indeed paid for, fulfilled, and that those specific items are eligible for return.
Even though the order originated in the cloud and was picked up at a completely different location.
If that POS system only talks to the local inventory management system and not the central e-commerce and finance systems,
then the associate has to manually call someone, forcing the customer to wait. And that's a failed CX moment right there. The CX solution has to have the ability to consolidate and understand this entire customer universe, the social data, the browsing history, the prior service calls, the financial transaction history, and do it in real time.
And it has to be predictive. You have to use advanced machine learning algorithms to personalize that engagement at the moment of experience.
Yes, you need to instantly know, based on their lifetime value and their recent interactions, whether to offer them a 10% discount on their next purchase or just a full refund with no fuss.
And we have to do this in the modern reality of data privacy regulations.
Which means we cannot simply bombard the customer with promotions. We have to be personalized, relevant, and timely.
So CX is about breaking down the disparate, siloed CRM technology that accumulated over decades.
And harmonizing it into one single consolidated view of the customer, connected to all their journeys in real time.
Now let's flip this to the more inherently complex world of business to business, or B2B. Let's take a discrete manufacturing company. They sell complex, configurable equipment. Let's just detail the sheer length of their campaign-to-cash process.
It's staggering. It starts with strategic planning between sales and marketing. This leads to targeting specific accounts, then campaign creation, lead generation.
And opportunity management, which
Yeah.
could be a new deal, a complicated renewal, or an upsell.
Then sales pipeline and forecasting. Once you get a win, you generate the highly detailed resistance. Quote, move to contract negotiation, register the orders, which often includes physical products, services, and subscription models.
Which then triggers order fulfillment. You have to manage logistics, handle invoicing, manage customer billing, calculate sales commissions.
And finally, integrate all of that back into core finance. It's a marathon.
It is. And if we paused right there and challenged the IT leadership of that manufacturing company, the question isn't how many steps they have.
It's how many different pieces of software are involved.
Ex-
And as the source material suggests, the number would likely be staggering. You'd have marketing automation software, dedicated Salesforce automation tools, separate configure, price, quote, or CPQ systems.
Legacy order management systems, maybe a third-party logistics tracking application.
And of course, the internal ERP and finance system. And these are rarely standardized. It's a mix of custom, standard, and ad hoc tools.
The inevitable result of using so many different software components across a single end-to-end process is the data nightmare. Fragmentation isn't just an inconvenience anymore. It's a source of critical business risk.
It is. When customer data is locked in those silos, sales has one version of the forecast, service has a totally different view of the installed base and service history.
And finance has yet a third transactional-only view of invoicing and recognized revenue.
So when the CEO asks, what is our true customer profitability? The answer comes back in three conflicting flavors.
That is the nightmare that the business architect is hired to fix.
Exactly. The goal of a true CX solution is to digitally transform the entire process, making it simplified, easy, and flexible from end to end, but simultaneously.
It has to create that single, consistent, unified view of the customer.
Yes, the aspiration is to achieve true synchronization. The source material has a great line, business process and data working together in harmony as if in a symphony orchestra.
And the technology has to support that vision.
It has to. What's so fascinating here is that this profound shift from fragmented CRM to holistic CX is only technologically feasible now. And it's because of powerful, innovative underlying technology, coupled with a deep infusion of business process expertise, all packaged within a unified platform concept.
This isn't just about iteration, it's about architectural enablement.
It is.
So let's delve into those three pillars that enable this architectural transformation, starting with the foundation: in-memory customer data management.
This technology directly addresses the latency and the complexity of that data nightmare we were just talking about. Imagine you're the chief marketing officer. You're trying to design a real-time segmentation for a new product launch.
You can't rely on data that takes 24 hours to aggregate.
No way. You need instant insight by blending massive, diverse data sets.
And when you say diverse, we're not just talking about names and addresses here.
Far from it. We're talking about online behavior website clicks, app usage, social media sentiment, raw point-of-sales transaction data,
Deep back-end ERP data, like what specific parts they bought.
transactional data like sales, returns, their loyalty points balance, classical demographic information, and crucially, these powerful real-time predictive scores.
Like their most recent buying propensity score or their probability of churn propensity changing based on a recent service interaction.
Exactly. Historically, blending, analyzing, and then acting on that volume of structured and unstructured data would take days. It would involve these complicated ETL extract, transform, load processes.
Which makes real-time personalized action impossible.
Totally impossible. In-memory technology, which holds these massive data sets in high-speed main memory instead of on a slow disk, enables this real-time segmentation and modeling.
So it allows the organization to ingest, model, and visualize big data from a plethora of disparate sources instantly.
Yes. For the business architect, this means they can see everything related to a customer on one screen with live data. And most importantly, they have the ability to ACT on it instantly.
That's the difference between planning a campaign based on a 2-week-old report.
And designing a hyper-personalized moment of experience engagement based on a customer abandoning their shopping cart 5 seconds ago. It's a whole different ballgame.
That real-time insight immediately transitions us to the second pillar, the centralized machine learning platform. We already established that algorithms have been around for a while, but they were historically stuck in their own silos.
And siloed ML platforms cause major business disconnects. Consider our campaign-to-cash scenario again. If a sales representative is asked about the probability of closing a major deal, without robust ML, the answer is often subjective. It's driven by their gut feel.
And that gut feel then becomes the foundation for the organization's sales investment pipeline and its future revenue strategy.
The financial consequences of relying on that are enormous, particularly for publicly traded companies. That subjective sales forecast is often wildly disconnected from the official, board-approved revenue forecast.
It creates unnecessary financial risk and a transparency problem for the leadership.
But the danger isn't just the absence of ML, it's the use of limited ML. An algorithm, no matter how sophisticated, is only as smart as the data you feed it.
Right.
So if you feed the ML system only with data locked in one silo, say, just the sales automation system, which records customer contact frequency but not their payment history or recent service tickets.
You run the risk of generating the wrong prediction.
Exactly. It's the old adage, a little learning is a dangerous thing.
Because the algorithm might predict a high probability of closing a deal, even though the service department knows that customer is profoundly unhappy due to 3 unresolved issues.
And finance knows they haven't paid their last invoice.
It's completely disconnected from reality.
Precisely. The true CX transformation happens when that ML platform is centralized and connected to the whole enterprise. It gets data and insights from all your customer-facing systems, marketing, sales, service, e-commerce, but also from the entire operational enterprise.
So ERP financials, supply chain insights, manufacturing schedules.
Even data from your external business ecosystem.
So connecting the ML platform to the inventory status and the production schedule is what makes the algorithm not just smart, but predictive and reliable.
It makes the entire organization smart, intelligent, and wise. Instead of predicting sales based on historical rep performance, you are predicting based on the confluence of customer behavior, financial health, and the physical capacity of your supply chain to actually deliver. That integrated forecast is exponentially more powerful.
Which brings us to the third, and perhaps the most challenging pillar, the centralized digital extendable cloud platform. This is the architectural home for all this synergy.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
Organizations have to philosophically abandon the practice of building disconnected, siloed applications in these pure CRM-centric clouds.
Because most companies operate in a hybrid reality.
They do. They have massive investments in on-premise ERP and supply chain systems. So the strategic focus has to shift toward innovating in a single, centralized cloud platform that functions as the heart of the whole enterprise, connecting all strategic and critical business processes.
Let's use that complex quoting scenario one more time to demonstrate why this unified platform is so necessary.
Okay. Imagine a company needs a system for generating quotes. They're selling physical products, professional services, and recurring subscriptions. They also rely on both internal manufacturing and external vendors for fulfillment.
So the quoting process itself is tortuous.
It is. It requires pulling master data and real-time pricing from an on-premise ERP system, performing complex configuration logic in the cloud, and then splitting the resulting quote into multiple distinct orders.
Production orders for manufacturing.
Subscription orders for recurring billing, and service orders for installation and maintenance.
And all those split orders are executed across different systems and departments. Manufacturing, finance, sourcing.
Crucially, the same configuration and pricing engine has to be used by the customer in the e-commerce portal for self-service.
By the sales rep in their internal CRM system.
And by the external partners in the channel portal. So the question for the business architect becomes, should that complex configuration service be custom-built and locked inside a siloed sales CRM platform?
Or should it be built once in a centralized cloud platform, making it available as a service that's connected holistically across all end-to-end processes?
The answer is clearly the latter for a true CX strategy. Locking that crucial service into a sales-only silo immediately cuts off the customer and the partner from a consistent experience.
So this centralized platform requires some cutting-edge underlying technology components to facilitate that kind of innovation.
Absolutely. First, you need built-in services or PaaS platform as a service.
PaaS is the cornerstone of agility. It lets the business consume sophisticated technological capabilities without having to manage the complexity of the underlying infrastructure.
Exactly. If a customer needs high-performance data capabilities but lacks an intrinsic in-memory database, they can just consume database as a service from the cloud platform.
Which allows for rapid innovation.
It does. For instance, you can quickly deploy customer portals that are instantly connected to the enterprise or use powerful address validation services for customer data cleansing before the data even enters your consolidated customer management platform. PaaS provides the ready-made components.
But the truly difficult part is ensuring future innovation doesn't just create new silos, which brings us to the next generation cloud extension platform. Extensions have always existed, the configuration, the small coding pieces that tailor an application.
For decades, these critical extensions were inevitably locked inside individual applications or platforms that were focused only on CRM or only on ERP. This architectural segregation prevents the solution of enterprise-wide strategic business problems.
Let's use the specific, powerful example from the source material. Solving the high inventory days of supply problem. This is a critical KPI that locks up enormous amounts of working capital.
Right. The calculation is inventory multiplied by 365 divided by the cost of goods sold. If that number is too high, the company is being inefficient.
This is a classic cross-departmental failure. Whose fault is it? Is it the finance team because the cost of capital is too high? Is it the warehouse manager for having excess physical inventory?
Or is it the sales team because they failed to sell what they forecasted? There is no single owner of that failure.
And critically, you can't write a simple piece of code in the warehouse management system alone to solve that cross-departmental problem.
No, because the root cause lies in inaccurate forecasting or disconnected marketing demand somewhere else entirely.
So the cloud platform has to be the solution's home.
It has to. It must support open source technology and allow developers to create extensions that break down silos, connecting across the entire enterprise. CRM, supply chain, and ERP.
So the extension isn't just improving one application, it's improving the entire system's efficiency.
That holistic approach is essential for solving strategic problems. I mean, imagine the powerful synergy in action. A successful marketing campaign triggers a massive influx of leads in the CRM system.
Okay.
The centralized ML platform instantly recognizes this as a high-probability demand spike. This is routed to the extension platform, which then triggers an anticipatory change in the MRP run the material requirements planning process in the back-end ERP.
So it's looking ahead.
It is. This results in an automated request to strategically purchase raw materials from the supplier ecosystem in anticipation of a massive rush order next quarter before the order is even officially placed.
That is digital transformation, connecting customer demand directly to supply chain execution. That level of foresight fundamentally changes how a company operates and competes.
It really does.
So we've defined the three non-negotiable strategic transformation concepts for the modern organization and for the business architect. In-memory customer data management for speed.
The centralized machine learning platform for intelligence.
And the next generation extension cloud platform for innovation and connection.
The context is everything here. You, the business architect, are trying to solve problems for the whole enterprise, not just the marketing team or the sales team. This is harder work, the challenges are greater, but the competitive returns are exponentially larger.
And to approach this, organizations need a proven methodology.
They need a strategic consulting methodology and a KPI-driven framework that defines success, not by system uptime, but by the business value that's created.
And it comes down to the language we use. You emphasize synergy, distinguishing it from mere integration. Can you clarify that distinction one last time for our listeners?
Yeah, it's a key point. Integration, in the older sense, meant patching two disparate systems together, creating a fragile digital connection point between two separate entities.
Like digital duct tape.
Pretty much. Synergy, however, happens when you move toward a common, centralized platform for managing customers, innovations, and extensions. They don't just connect. They move toward a shared core identity.
I see.
So when you're building a business case for this massive architectural shift, you have to look beyond the normal ROI or net present value calculations. The real value is found in the ability to unlock synergy and innovate entirely new business models that your fragmented competitors simply cannot touch.
At the end of the day, when you strip away all the technology jargon and the process diagrams, we're fundamentally just trying to provide our customers a memorable lifetime experience.
That's it.
And that is a blend of hard science, the data, the ML and high art, the empathy, the design.
It absolutely is. And every organization must define its own philosophy for CX. This philosophical commitment is the hardest step.
It's not a technology problem.
Not at its core. The white paper quotes the concept from that Robert Frost poem, The Road Not Taken, which really speaks to the choice leadership faces today.
Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
That's the challenge. That's it right there.
That's the challenge presented to business leaders and architects today, isn't it?
It is.
Huh.
Will you continue on the trotty path? The path that, for the last couple of decades in CRM, was focused so narrowly on optimizing the sales rep, or the marketer, or the service agent.
And in doing so, unfortunately, lost sight of the central protagonist, the customer.
Or will you take the road less traveled? Will you challenge yourself to become a true enterprise or business architect, a hybrid strategist, looking beyond the immediate needs of one line of business to the big cross-organizational picture, proactively breaking down those technical and organizational silos?
The powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. What will your verse be?
That's the question.
You have the strategic knowledge now. The time to transition from fragmented CRM execution to a cohesive customer experience strategy using these exploratory architectural frameworks is absolutely now.
Start building that business case today. The future of a unified, intelligent enterprise is waiting.
Until the next deep dive, keep learning and start building that enterprise architecture.